Fact. Man is an animal, like any other. Fact. No animal is born with moral sense. Dogs, famously man's best friend, needs to be taught what to do and what not to do. Over the thousands of years of controlled breeding, all we've done is make dogs more social. One would think if we could breed a sense of right and wrong, a moral sense into them, we would. And the same goes for humans. We're an animal like dogs. We're social like dogs. What humans do have is an unparalleled level of natural intelligence. But even then, when we are born, when we are young, we as humans still need to be taught right from wrong. If being social doesn't make you innately moral, if being intelligent doesn't make you innately moral, and no combination of the two things makes you innately moral, then I think it's safe to say that nothing is born with an innate moral sense. Now, don't you think for one second that any of these ideas are my own. The pondering of man's innate moral nature and moral philosophy have all been more extensively thought by such large names as Thomas Hobbes, Rousseau, Locke. The reason I establish this is because there is an element of Western privilege that causes Westerners to mistake the source and nature of morality. Life in the West is highly stable and highly orderly. There are rules and fields of law for governing everything in Western life. And while the just and fairness of those rules might be up for debate, there is no doubting that most people in the West live their lives according to those rules. Something to consider is that most humans construct their ideas of what is normal, what is regular, around the environment they are born into. So, a lot of Westerners, by a result of their birth and sort of thus privilege, construct an idea that, people are just naturally moral. Look, nobody rampantly breaks the rules in the Western civilization. There's never roaming groups of bandits and highwaymen everywhere. But alas, your life experiences do not serve as very good evidence. Anecdotal evidence in general is not very concrete. To go back to the original fact, no one is born with moral sense. Thus, humans must be taught moral sense. And if humans must be taught moral sense, then that means there are humans who will have been taught poorly, or perhaps humans who have been taught not at all. Thus, leaving the possibility, and therefore the statistical inevitability, of people who have been taught either a warped sense of morality or no sense of morality at all. And so I must ask the Westerner, how can you expect someone who has been taught poorly or not been taught at all to follow the moral system? Well, the answer is quite simple. Force. The objective fact of the matter is there will always be a need for force, because there will always be people who are amoral or have a warped sense of morality. Why force, you might ask? Well, that's because humans are like animals, like any other. Force will always work on them. Force does not require the human to have anything more than what they are born with to understand it. Thus, humans, like animals, understand force. And ultimately, force does not even require the human to understand for it to work. And because of that fact, you get things as I outline in my videos on empire and governance. Force is just as effective at enforcing good as it is at enforcing evil. The only dependable way to derive power for any reason is with force, for there will always be people ready to disobey you, whether for good or for evil. One problem, one misconception a lot of people have as to the nature of morality is whenever they think of someone who is amoral, they usually think of a raving maniac, a savage, or perhaps a utterly debauched glutton, if you will. But the reality is, amoral people are also human, and this means that they are born with the same logical faculties that other humans are born with. And because of that, they're still able to navigate systems. They're still able to play the part, so to speak. Their true nature emerges when there is a moral, just imperative that conflicts with their personal interests. The first thing I'm sure some of you will think of are politicians. This particular breed of amoral individual is part of a political class. And because of that, that must mean that they've been able so successfully to navigate social systems that they can initiate themselves to such a high level of power. A class of people famous for saying one thing and doing another. When you see that, how does that make you feel? For me personally, hypocrite is one of the worst things that you can call me. Thinking it of myself, seeing it in others, sickens me. I think to myself, how can they do that? How can they cope with this sick feeling? The thing I have to realize is they don't feel sick at all. They don't feel right and wrong. Now, any system, even one created by the flawless logic of an all-powerful God, would still need force if it is to survive. Why? Because there will always be someone who wants more than is fair, more than is right, more than what even a perfect system could provide. Now it's the obligatory outro. Do you have a story to share? Perhaps a story with an encounter with an amoral individual, or perhaps just a story of hypocrisy? Please let me hear it. I revel in hearing this stuff.